There have been some confusion, so let's check in with Caitlin at the YMCA and to see what she sees out there.
Breaking news about school shootings startles most of us.
There actually has been a lot of confusion.
But as time passes, poof, many of you probably forget about any particular school.
Very anxious. I'm holding it together.
I mean, do you remember this shooting? When a student allegedly shot and killed another student at Mount Tabor High School in Winston-Salem. Happened a year ago this month.
They came in guns drawn.
You better believe English teacher Lori Schaefer remembers. She and her students still live with it every single day.
It's one of those things that I think will be a part of me forever.
September 1st, 2021 started like any other day.
It did. Yep, first and second period went just fine.
But as the halls began to clear for third period, an unusual sight and sound.
Our assistant principal, Ms. Clemens, comes sprinting down the hall, yelling into her walkie-talkie, "Shots fired, shots fired."
Ms. Schaefer locked her door and pulled down a tiny shade in the door window like she was taught. Then she heard a panicked knock at the door. It was 4 students she knew.
They were shaking and they were like, "Ms. Schaefer, we think we just encountered the shooter." And I said, "Well, how do you know?" "Well, he tried to get in our car and we saw him dump something in the trash can," which was suspicious to them. Meanwhile, social media is blowing up. Kids are posting that 6, 7, 8 people are dead.
Outside, nervous parents were waiting to hear from their kids and confused where to pick them up.
All she has told me was that there was an active shooter in the school and that they went on lockdown, and that someone had been shot.
Back inside, Lori and the students waited in her classroom for hours. No bathroom, no food, and no update on what actually happened. Then came another knock, and the door was unlocked.
They came in guns drawn up, and it was very jarring. When police did come in, I told them that my students thought that they had encountered the shooter.
Lori and the rest of the world will learn a 15-year-old sophomore was dead, allegedly at the hands of another student who remains in jail to this day. The police chief delivering the news and tears.
One student was located with a gunshot wound. Medical responders began life-saving measures, and the injured student was transported to Wake Forest University Baptist Medical Center, where he succumbed to his injuries.
The actual shooting was just a few seconds, but Lori Schaefer would not get home until well past dinner. But dinner was the last thing on her mind.
That was probably the most emotional that I allowed myself to be that day.
It was 8:30 by the time Lori walked into her living room.
I think I sat and stared at the walls for a long time trying to figure out what I felt and how we were going to move forward.
The shooting was on a Wednesday. Friday, teachers came back and students could get their stuff left behind. Even lunches remained on tables untouched since the shooting. That following Tuesday, students returned to class.
Every time a kid walked in my room, it was another round of tears and another round of hugs and just another let's just talk about it. I had kids who said nothing and just ran right up to me and we just hugged and cried.
How do you begin teaching again? Turns out an email from a teacher who went through a shooting at another school had a suggestion.
They had sent us an activity that involved, it was English-based, where students had to use vivid language to describe a food truck that they were going to design. And it could be a food truck of any kind of food they liked. So they had to use persuasive language, they did all that, but they could also design and color and just be in their own bubble processing. Because of that, I decided to pay that forward, and every other school shooting that I heard of this year that involved high school or middle school, I didn't know the elementary school would do the same activity, I emailed their English department the same lesson plans.
And how many of those did you have to send out?
I think I sent out about a dozen.
Time helps healing, but other school shootings and even a door slamming can bring it all back in an instant. Just this summer, Ms. Schaefer led a student tour in Australia and New Zealand. thousands of miles away from home, and they still couldn't escape it.
And the guy who was running the duck tour was very lively, very animated, and he's telling us all kinds of things, but he also decides to comment on political things in the United States. And he starts talking about how we've had so many school shootings this year, and isn't that crazy, and what's going on with America. And my students and I just felt myself, I just froze, and I was like, I'm having so much fun, and then all of a sudden I'm in this moment where I can't function. He didn't know that there was one of those statistics that he's talking about sitting in his vehicle.
A statistic, but people, students, teachers, who long after most people forget, live with it every single day, even a year after the shooting.
Can you say that you feel safe again at school?
Mostly. I don't know that I ever will feel completely safe again. Do I hesitate walking back in the building? No, I do not. But do I constantly scan my room for what would I do if there was an active shooter? Yes. Do I purchase things with the thought of what if I'm stuck in my room for a couple of hours? Yes, I do.
Not exactly the back-to-school shopping she planned on when she began teaching at Mount Tabor 28 years ago.